All right, what's up, everybody out there on YouTube? Bryce and Michael RC here, and I have had a ton of questions about the Anycubic i3 Mega, and I haven't been able to bring my printers in because it did end up raining. Remember, I said I was going to bring it in. I was going to bring them in and get them acclimated to the warmth of the house because they've been out in my garage cold, and I didn't want them to build up condensation and stuff. But since it started raining, then it got even more damp. So instead of doing that, I got an email from someone last night about the Anycubic i3 Mega asking some questions about it and stuff. And there are some typical questions that I get asked about a lot with the Anycubic i3 Mega. And I feel like we can answer some of those questions today. And what a lot of people get frustrated with the most when it comes to the Anycubic i3 Mega is probably the bed leveling. That is the hardest thing that people have trouble with when it comes to the bed leveling. It does have an ultra base, and the ultra base in the Anycubic i3 Mega is amazing. It's an awesome bed. In fact, I found a bed just like the ultra base for the Creality Ender 3 on Amazon, and I actually put that on, and I've been using it because it's so much better than like any other bed. The difference is the one that comes with the Creality is just kind of a glass top. It's the same material that the Ultra Base is made out of, and you set it onto the bed, and the heat comes up and heats up the glass. But the Ultra Base with the Anycubic i3 Mega, the heat actually runs into it, like the wires are actually hooked up to the bed itself, and heats up the bed. So it's a little bit different, but it's probably the best bed that you can get. And when you finally get it, your plastic sticking to the bed, then it's literally the best bed that I've printed on when it comes to 3D printing. So, but a lot of people struggle with that first initial leveling of the bed, and so there's a few things that you can do. And when I first got my Anycubic i3 Mega, I put it on, I leveled it. It tells you how to level it. Everybody knows that you take a sheet of paper and you put it on the bed. And then you take it to its home point. Okay, you go into the Anycubic or any 3D printer. This is the same thing that you do for any of them. You send it to the home point, which is the x-axis all the way down, all the way up to the corner, and then you put a sheet of paper underneath it, and you've got to make sure that between the bed and the hot end is just the width of a piece of paper. And you can use a regular sheet of paper, anything. It's just a regular sheet. And you got to make sure that you can slide it, that it doesn't catch. If it catches, the bed's too far up. If it's you can move it too freely, then the hot end's too far up. But it's got to have a little bit of drag, just a tiny bit of drag. And the thing about the Anycubic is, as soon as you get this corner, the first corner, and it's filling just right, you go to the next corner and it's filling just right, and then the next corner, and then you go to the next corner. By the time you get back to the first one that you did, it's off again. So what I would suggest when leveling your bed is to start with the first corner and then go diagonal to the other corner and do that, and then go to the next front corner and then go diagonal again. And then once you get done with those corners by doing it diagonal and crossways, then go around. And typically that got it for me, because a lot of times as you go around, depending on how level your surface is and things like that, a lot of times by the time I got back to it, it would be undone again. And sometimes people don't check it. They get it to where it's perfect, just a tiny bit of drag, get the last one with the tiny bit of drag, and then they don't check the first one again. And so when they put it back on, it's just off a bit again. So, and that first layer is the most important layer in the whole print, because if it's off just by a little bit and your hot end comes around, pushes out too much plastic or something, and then it comes back around and catches on that, it can rip the whole thing up, especially for PLA. ABS is real sensitive with its first layer and tends to warp because it's really, really hot when it goes onto the bed, but the bed is a lesser heat than the hot end. So as it cools down, it tends to warp and shrink in. And so you need that first layer perfect. And with the Anycubic, unless you're putting it, like I put mine inside of a box. You can go to Walmart and buy a box that's big enough to go around the entire Anycubic, and then you can punch holes for the cords to come out. That's how I print ABS, so it traps the heat in. You want to trap as much heat in as you can. So when it does lay it down, when it does lay the ABS down, it doesn't warp too much, because that ambient coolness of the room will also shrink it as it goes up, because the bed stays hot and it sticks to the bed and the bottom layer is still stuck. But as it goes up, these layers in the middle aren't touching the bed anymore, and they cool all the way down to the room temperature, and they will warp like crazy. So that's the problem with ABS. But if you're printing with PLA prints perfectly on an Anycubic i3 Mega. And so that first layer is important. And a lot of times with the Anycubic, a lot of times the first layer of the actual print will lay down really good. But I noticed that the first layers of the supports don't. And that's the biggest problem that I always had. When the bed is off just by a little bit, and you have supports in the print, it'll lay that thick layer that goes for the actual print itself. It'll lay that down good. But as soon as it goes over the supports, there's such a thin piece of plastic that, it's so thin that when it comes back and the heat from the hot end hits the first layer that that was put down first, it just pulls it right up. So you've got to make sure that is perfectly level. And not only that first part that I told you about, making sure that you go around and make sure that it is perfectly level all the way around, and try it several times as you go. If you still are having trouble and struggling with leveling that way, another thing that you can do, and what I did, because mine leveled really good right off the bat, and I got my Darth Vader print right here. One of the first prints that I did, I leveled the bed and printed that thing, and it was fantastic. But once I got done with that, I had to re-level the bed and started working on something else. And I could not get, for the life of me, I couldn't get the bed leveled. I just could not get the bed to level again. And so what I ended up doing is I took when I got about 2-3 hours to myself, that I knew, I wasn't planning on printing anything. I wasn't planning on going anywhere. I could devote this like 2 hours to the printer. And a lot of people don't have that extra time. In fact, you probably don't need all that extra time, but I'm one of those people that gets laser focused and I want to figure something out. And so I say, this is how many hours I'm going to dedicate to it. And this is how I'm going to get it done. So what I did is I took, some time to myself, and I went to Thingiverse, and you can go to Thingiverse and download one of those tests. They have tons of bed leveling tests on Thingiverse. You can get tons of them where they have the squares on each corner. That's my favorite one, especially for the Anycubic i3 Mega, because like what I was telling you, as soon as you level this one and this one and this one, you go all the way around, this one's unlevel again. So you get the ones that have the 4 corners, and you set it up in your slicer, and then basically you let the printer run. You get it as level as you can, and then you let the printer run, and you just watch it. And as it's going, you can see where the perfect amount is coming out at, where there's too much plastic or something coming out at, and you can actually level it while it's going and twist it while it's going. The awesome thing about the Anycubic i3 Mega that's different than any other printers that I've printed with is the springs are tight and the adjustments are super small. Like the Creality Ender 3, the adjustments are really big and the springs are loose. And so you have to level that thing every single time, and you can get it leveled, and as soon as you run a test print on it or something like that, it can get unleveled, because anytime that you barely hit that big old gigantic wheel, it turns that screw, because a bigger wheel turns the screw more. But with the littler adjustment wheel, you when you adjust it, it adjusts in small amounts. So and it's locked in. Like when I level the Anycubic bed, the one thing that's wonderful about it that I love about the Anycubic is I could probably print, 2 or 3 helmets before I ever have to level the bed again. I know a lot of people say to level your bed between every single print, you'll get the best results, and that's true. You will get the best results, but with the Anycubic, the wonderful thing about it is you don't have to. I mean, you're not going to get the best results, and as it goes out, it's probably going to be a little bit worse. But it just stays level for so much longer than my Creality Ender 3 does, so much longer. And so while it's going, that's what I was talking about. While it's going around and it's doing each square, you can make little tiny adjustments to it as it goes around. And then after it gets the first layer done on each box, you turn it off, peel those off, and then do it again. And keep doing it until each one of them, that first layer is perfect on each one of them. And if you do this, if you watch it and you spend some time on it and really focus on leveling them in and stuff, you'll physically see where your hot end needs to be from the bed in order for it to be level. And I've gotten to a point with the Anycubic now that I don't have to do the paper thing. I don't have to take the papers around anymore and see if it's taut. I can actually look at the bed, see where the hot end is, and see how much light is coming underneath the onto the bed underneath the hot end, and I can tell exactly where it needs to be. And I just go around because the more you spend with your machine, the more you spend with your product, the more you're going to learn about it. And so if you don't have a couple hours to spend and you don't have enough time to spend on in one session, if you don't have like an hour or 2 hours or something to really get that bed level, then what you can do is get some painter's tape, some blue painter's tape. And PLA sticks to painter's tape like nothing else, And you don't even have to be that level. You can get close, basically. Just get as close as you want. And then you just take blue painter's tape and you put it all down, and you can, I always put it to where the whole thing was full of blue painter's tape, get like that blue painter's tape that comes like that thick, and you just put line next to line until you get the whole thing covered. And then I got to where I didn't want to have the bad thing about blue painter's tape is if you have a lot of space between your hot end and your bed, you can peel off the blue painter's tape pretty easily. But if you're smashing the PLA into the painter's tape, most of the time when your print gets done, the bottom of it, that blue painter's tape is going to leave like a sticky residue on the bottom of your print. And sometimes it's actually a good thing. Like I'll show you real quick. I have, I have a print here that I actually did it on purpose on. The whole gun was printed regular. You can see that there's no sticky residue or anything all over this. But when it came to the bottom piece here, it was going to go on a shelf, and I didn't know, and it was going to go on my wooden shelf, which things slide around like crazy for. And since I had done that with the Anycubic prior, I had learned that the blue painter's tape stays on the bottom and it leaves kind of a sticky residue on the bottom of it. And so this does not move around when it's on a thing anymore, because you can see it's got and you can see that it's got the sticky residue by stuff that's just kind of sticking to the bottom of it. So I did that on purpose, just so it wouldn't move around, and just kind of peeled off as much as I could to reveal that residue, to not have it too sticky, but still to have a little bit of stick to it. So when the gun goes on it and it's on a shelf, I don't have to worry about this thing sliding and falling down. So you can kind of use that to your advantage sometimes, the whole painter's tape. So that's what I did before I got the time to actually sit down and figure it out and figure out the bed leveling. I put the blue painter's tape on and it worked phenomenally. And the only problem I had, and if you have a Dremel, if you're planning on making stuff like this and this and this and this, it doesn't really matter blue painter's tape, because you can get a Dremel and put a sander on it and you can sand it right off. It's just one of those things. If you're making a 3D print and you don't want it, you don't want to sand it, you just want the product as soon as it comes off the bed, and you want it the color of your PLA that you use or your plastic that you'll use or something like that. If you're looking forward to something like that, then maybe you don't want to have to go and sand the bottom of it or something like that. Or maybe you have to turn something sideways because it just doesn't fit right. There's some things on the Anycubic where I would turn it sideways and diagonal because you get a bigger area to work. And so you would have blue painter's tape on the side or something like that. And maybe that's something that you don't want. So you do want to get the bed level before doing something like that. So those are a few things that you should know when having an Anycubic. And that's the biggest thing I get talked to about by everybody, is the bed leveling. A lot of people get so tired and frustrated with not being able to do that very first print. The owl, I can't remember now off the top of my head if the owl, because I know the owl comes sliced on it in the drive that they send you. And so I can't remember if I went back and redid the owl in Cura or if I kept it as the original ones. And here's the thing about that. Another thing too that I get from people is that it takes so long to print that first benchmark. Yes. Same thing went with the Creality Ender 3. It took so long to print that first benchmark. And I think it's because these 3D printing companies themselves, they don't really know what the best settings for their printer actually is. And I think the little dog that I printed for the Creality Ender 3 on my basic settings, when I ran it back through Cura for my settings, I think it only was like an hour and a half, maybe an hour and a half. But whenever I printed on the Creality Ender 3, the very first benchmark, the very first print that I put through it, it took hours to print it. I can't remember how long it took to print the owls, because it's been a long time. And I do have a review of the Anycubic on YouTube that you can look up if you want to go back and see that. And I think I do mention how long it took to print the owls, but it takes a long time. It goes slower. It's terrible. But you can, the good thing about that is don't rely on that benchmark. A lot of people, when they get their 3D printers in, what they do is they go into Thingiverse or My Mini Factory or something like that. These are websites that you can go to. If you don't know, if you're a beginner printer, these are websites that you can go to get free STLs. And they have benchmarks that you can print yourself. So download something like Cura, a slicer, just any slicer really. There's tons of them. You can Google free slicers or something like that. Just download any slicer that you want. I use Cura. A lot of people don't like using Cura anymore, and I'm thinking about using some different ones here soon once I can get them on my computer, because I got a brand new computer, and for some reason I dug through it today and I can't download anything. Like I can't download my Photoshop, I can't download Cura, I can't all these, because for some reason I can't even go into my start menu. I don't have a start menu. Like there's nothing on this computer. Like nothing. It came completely zeroed out. So I'm having to put all the programs on it, and programs to run other programs I'm having to put on it myself. So until I figure that out, I'm not going to be able to really do anything. And what I wanted to do with this was show you guys my own Cura settings. Of course, they were on my other computer, so I'm going to have to redo my Cura settings here. I do have videos, if you want to go through my videos, that show my settings. And I did that on purpose, so in case I ever lost my settings, I could go back and find my own settings, and just to help other people out with settings for like TPU and PLA and ABS and things like that for the Creality and the Anycubic. I have some videos that have that all on there. So anyways, download you one of these free slicers, and then look through your settings. Make sure that one thing that's going to make your your printer go way slower, especially the Anycubic. The Anycubic puts down the best support I think I've ever seen, because I put the same exact settings in for my Creality Ender 3 that I put for my Anycubic, so I could kind of get um, the same print and try to see how good the Creality did compared with the same exact settings. And every printer's different. They do things different. Like, for example, the Creality Ender 3 can print things way faster than the Anycubic and do a great job printing them way faster. But the Anycubic's prints are just way better, like way better, leaps and bounds better. I mean, you can get them really good on the Creality Ender 3, but that, because the Anycubic i3 Mega has the dual drive, the X-axis has double motors. You have a more stable gantry, and it's a way better printer, way better. And I wonder if that's the reason why it's slower, is because it has the dual. I'll have to check that out. But I did try to push the Anycubic to be as fast as the Creality, and it's not worth it. There's a specific setting that you want to have for the speed, that you can still get really good print times, but still get a really good product in the end. And that's something that you're going to have to play around with. Really, like my video for the TPU, finding the perfect settings for the TPU. The Anycubic struggles with TPU, but you can get good TPU prints with it. I just haven't had the nerve or the time to sit down and really figure those settings out. With the Creality, it was easy. That thing just prints TPU perfectly. But when it comes to ABS and PLA, the Anycubic is leaps and bounds above the Creality. But it's the same thing. You're going to have to find your settings that work for you. Everything's going to come into play. The type of PLA that you're using comes into play. If you're using really cheap, I use a lot of Solotech PLA, which is an extremely cheap PLA. And I use a lot of Amazon Prime PLA. When Amazon has some PLA, Amazon used to have tons of deals, and I would take advantage of them. Like 5 rolls for like $40. That was amazing. Like, they used to do all sorts of really good deals for PLA, and they haven't done. I mean, they've been out of PLA for a long time. I haven't been able to find any good PLAs through Amazon. But Solotech's one of my favorite cheaper ones. That's still a really good product, and you get a really good finish, and they've got really awesome colors. Like the baby blue in Solotech is actually a really, really good PLA to use. But the green in Solotech, for some odd reason, I don't know if it's the pigment or something like that, but the green Solotech, it just sucks. It sucks to print with. The clear PLA by Solotech is my favorite clear PLA that refracts light, that makes light spread out more through it. Because clear plastic for a 3D printer, you still can't see through it. It's not clear, to see through. It's like, you know what I'm saying. But all that's going to factor in, all of it, when it comes to your settings. So I set my settings by kind of seeing how the PLAs react with. There's different heats. And a lot of times your PLA will tell you, your plastic, your ABS, or your TPU, they'll tell you the heat between that you need to set your hot in for. And that can actually depend, a better quality print can also depend on the ambient temperature of your house. Now, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's really, as long as you have a steady, dry air, it's not going to really make that much of a difference unless you're printing TPU. Because TPU, if you have humidity in the air, it makes your prints worse, because TPU is like, it soaks in moisture, and the more moisture that TPU has in it, the worse prints you're going to have. If it has too much moisture in it, you're going to hear like hissing and stuff as it prints, as it hits the hot end. So really, a lot of beginners, and this is a video about the Anycubic i3 Mega. So what I would say, we did the bed leveling and stuff, things that you can check out on that one. The one thing that I would say before giving up on the Anycubic, before sending it back, because you see a lot of videos, and even in my video, I've talked about just how easy it is. It's so easy to set up. The Ultra Base is amazing. all this different stuff. And I ended up buying the Anycubic i3 Mega because of all the good reviews that I had seen on it. And not only because of the good reviews, but also because of the Ultra Base, because everything that I'd heard about the Ultra Base. And when I couldn't get the bed to stick, when I couldn't get the bed level and couldn't get the PLA to stick, man, I got so frustrated. So frustrated. Not only that's another thing with the plastic is the plastic sticking to the bed depends on the degree of the bed as well. So you could have it too cold and it won't stick, or too hot and it'll continue to melt. So there's like a balance in that depends on your slicer. But what I was saying was a lot of times when it comes to your print, the speed of your print, and then the results is all about the slicer. It has nothing to do with the printer. The printer is an amazing printer, and it's going to do a fantastic job. A lot of it is user error. So you're going to want to go into your slicer, whatever slicer you have, get familiar with your slicer and do benchmarks. You see everybody on 3D printing videos with 1,001 benchies. That's because those are benchmark prints. And that's how they test things. And a lot of people, whenever they test new plastics and just new stuff, they print a new benchy. And so they're just and that's just the benchmark print. And it's so little and it takes so little time to print that you can figure out your leveling. You can figure out if there's any ghosting happening, if there's any skipped layers happening, how close the layers need to be, and if they need to be any, closer, more far apart, and the speed of your printer and stuff like that. And I think a decent sized benchy only takes about an hour to print. So it doesn't take any time out of your day. I don't like the benchy. I don't think I've ever printed the benchy. I'm probably the only person who 3D prints who has never printed a benchy. Not one time. So many people have the benchy that I decided that I wasn't going to print it. And I don't know if I have any of my benchmarks left, but I used to print the, you guys know, if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, I have the little alien from the Pizza Planet in Toy Story. That's my benchmark. That's what I like to use because it's nice and it's got rounded edges. It's got spots that should be smooth. It's got a few little detail parts, and then it's got that big antenna on top of its head that kind of just shows, and I had to, I would get the entire print to be perfect, and then it would get to that antenna and it would struggle with the antenna. So you can really kind of zero in on certain aspects. When you get a good benchmark that you like, you can kind of start zeroing in on that stuff. So I know this is all off the top of my head. It's just I just wanted to go on live because I've been having a lot of questions about it, and there's been a few people that have gotten really frustrated with these particular spots about the Anycubic i3 Mega, and there are ways. It's just a simple fix. Most of it's user error, and then the other is just the bed sucks to level. It does. It just does. You're just gonna have to take the time, and that sucks. But once you do get it level, you're gonna really you're gonna be proud of yourself for one, and two, it's a wonderful machine once you get it, and you don't have to use the tape anymore or something like that. You can, if you're having trouble and you're just frustrated with it, and you want to get your first print, you want to start looking at that other stuff, just get it level enough and use the blue painter's tape for now until you can really zero in and get to know your machine. If you want to start focusing on your slicer and getting your slicer settings set up before leveling, and you just want to spend some time on that for a little bit, just use the blue tape, and that'll work perfectly for it. It works you don't even need the blue tape. There's the green tape that you can get at an auto store, an orange tape that you can get at an auto store, or even the white Scotch tape works. Not the really cheap white Scotch tape. There's I think it's the the white Scotch tape that's made by Duct, the people who make duct tape. I think it's that one because that's the one that my my gas station sells, and I tried to use it a couple times, and it's got a real slick surface. See, painter's tape doesn't have a real slick surface. It's kind of rough, and it just buries the PLA in it and sticks perfectly. But this stuff is got a real smooth top to it, and it does not work. It doesn't even. And another thing too is those other tapes. they have the sticky part once the bed starts getting hot. If you've got a really, really cheap Scotch tape that you put down on it or something, painter's tape, if you've got a really, really cheap one, uh, it's going to come unstuck as soon as the bed starts heating up. So get a decent painter's tape, a decent blue tape, because I have had tapes come, it's printing, and all of a sudden I look over and it's all starting to roll up because it's coming unstuck and it's rolling back. You know what I mean? So get a decent painter's tape or something to put on there. Not a super cheap one. You don't want to go super cheap. But yeah, before you throw out your Anycubic, before you send it back or anything like that, try those things. Try to spend some time just really leveling it down. Just know that it sucks, and everybody who owns an Anycubic knows that it sucks, and every single one of us has had to go through that. So that's the one huge gripe that I have about Anycubic is how hard it is to level. But I think that has a lot to do with how small the little tightening wheels and stuff are, and how tight the springs are, and that actually in the long run helps. It really, really helps because it keeps it level once you get it there. So I think um, just the initial leveling really, really sucks, but once you get it and you get the hang of it, then it's fantastic. So, but like I said, I'm just trying to run through it real quick before I get off of here. Um, Spend some time really leveling it. Just get you a free STL from Thingiverse, preferably the one with the corners. Just let it run the first layer and tighten it as it's going. Just tighten it as it goes, and then get done, scrape them off, do it again until you can really just see it laying down good. And then, um, like I said, the slicer. Really get you a slicer that you're comfortable with. Um, Look at the speeds, the settings in it, and run you tiny benches, some either tiny benchmarks. Find you a benchmark that you like, something small that's going to be quick, that you can check all the ghosting and all that different stuff, and really kind of just make adjustments. If you want to go through my videos, I have my settings on there for the Anycubic. It's a good benchmark to start with. Maybe yours is just a tad different, and you may just have to make small adjustments here or there. Another thing too that can make your printer take a long time to print is if your supports are too high. Like I don't put my supports above 3% usually. And I think when I first started printing, I would put like when I printed this here, my supports were at like 50%. I'm not joking. And that thing took so long to print. So long and when you print at that high of support, some of the support's going to stick to the rest of the print, and it's going to be really tough to get it off, especially highly detailed prints. So you're going to be sitting in there with a pair of pliers and stuff, like really working at it, trying to get those supports off and stuff. You set it at 3%, and the thing about it is with the Anycubic, it sets so the supports are thin, and then before it gets to the printed layer, like to the actual print, um, it puts a tiny little layer down over, and then it puts the first layer for your print on top of that. So a lot of times, if you put it at 3%, all you need is to get like a flathead screwdriver and kind of wiggle it in there and kind of just rock it back and forth, and you can pop it right off. But the more support you have on there, the more stiff that's going to be, and the less it's going to be able to you're going to be able to work it, and the harder it is to get that part off. So just remember that the support, don't make it too high. It'll take forever, and it'll suck to take it off. And then the infill. There's a good video out by 3D Printing Nerd about the infill, where he printed this gigantic thing with zero infill. Infill is basically just your support for the inside. If you don't need support on the inside, then you don't need it. So if you're doing 3% support on the outside, do 3% infill, because you don't really need that much infill unless you really like. I have some things that I've printed that I've jacked it, and I've made videos about it if you guys have been watching, where I jacked the infill up just because I wanted to get more support, like the Power Ranger helmet here and the Power Ranger helmet here, and then I had the Black Ranger up here. and I had another Blue Ranger, and I make these hinges that are on Etsy. You can buy. This guy took my he actually watched my video that I made about the hinges, clicked on the link, downloaded the link to my hinges, and he's selling them on Etsy for like $10 a piece. I don't mind. I got a hold of him, and I was like, I don't really care. If you want to make some money off of them, that's fine. Just mention my name, like just say thanks, Bryson, for creating this. But those hinges, they needed more support because they needed to be more solid, so they didn't break. And with the thin layer of plastic that I put for the outside, it needed more on the inside to make it more of a solid piece. And so little tiny things like that, like the hinges for these, if you want a stronger print, like some utility print or something like that, if you want it to be stronger, support's really good for that. But if you're just making something that's gonna, like my Santa Claus here, I think this has like 2% infill in it, and you can hear it because it doesn't need it. You know what I mean? It needed very little support on the inside just so we can get some of the overhang and stuff. Actually, this probably didn't need any at all, except for maybe like right here. You got to think of it from the inside. I put like a 3% infill on it and a 3% support, and you can see where the support was here and under here, but it came off really easy. And you would think, especially all under here would be hard to get off, because you can see that underneath part kind of goes up, and a lot of times support like that, or in his face, like right under the eyebrows and stuff, that stuff gets tough to take out. But with 3% infill, it came out, it popped right out. It was really easy, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time printing, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time on trying to take the infill off and the supports. Not taking the did I say take the infill? You don't take the infill off because it closes in, but you're going to save yourself a ton of time on taking off the supports and stuff. So that's about it. That about wraps it up. Those are some things that you need to know about the Anycubic before somebody gets frustrated and tosses it. Oh man, you know what I forgot to do? Oh, I didn't know what that was. Whoops. If you've seen an ad, my bad, because I didn't mean to do that. I can remember if I set this thing for my correct settings or not. So anyways, if you have any more questions about the Anycubic i3 Mega, if you have any questions at all, make sure that you get on here. I know it was a little bit all over the place because I'm just kind of got it. I didn't put anything together. I had an email coming from one person, and then I had another person that I've been corresponding with back and forth via comments on one of my videos, and then a few more people that I have talked to throughout, the past couple months, and it always seems to be the same thing: the leveling of the bed, the printer being too slow, and this and that. And basically that's how you fix it. That's how you fix it. Those little tiny things right there are basically, the big gripe that when people first get into printing, you don't really get all that stuff. But you'll get it. You'll get it together, and you'll have a blast with it. So my name is Bryce Michael, RC. Hopefully this has been educational for you. Hopefully everybody out there is having a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. 49ers play the Seahawks tomorrow for one of the most epic season-ending games of all time. So I'm pretty jacked up about that. And we'll see you guys later. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on post notifications if you guys want to know of future live videos and stuff. I'm going to be doing a not nightly, but I'm going to be doing at least a one night a week live video, so anybody can ask any questions. I'm going to be doing another video kind of like this, where it's just kind of freestyle, talking about the Creality Ender 3 as well, because there's a few things with the Creality Ender 3 that, man, just bugged me right off the bat. And the bed's one of them, because the bed that comes with the Creality Ender 3 Gen 1, it sucks. And as soon as you get your hot end hot, and you start to level your bed, if your hot end's too far down and goes, it'll burn into your bed and leave holes. It's ridiculous. You got to go get you one of those ultra base like glass beds from Amazon for the Creality Ender 3 if you get one. But anyways, my name is Bryce Michael RC. Like I said, hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, leave me a comment if you guys have any questions or suggestions, and we will see you guys later. Y'all have a good one. Bye.